Admitted. The Strange Tale of Depsey the Rabbit. Chapter 34. Sanctuary and Confessions. The hidden door behind Depsey's dressing room bookshelf opened with a soft click, revealing a narrow staircase that descended into darkness. Chuck's yellow surface gleamed dully in the emergency lighting as he followed Depsey down, carrying the small velvet pouch that contained all that remained of Lucy Teacup. After hours of running through enhanced cartoon streets, dodging broadcasting surveillance and enhanced patrol units, the promise of sanctuary felt almost too good to be true. 20 years, Depsey said quietly, his yellow shoes making soft squeaks on each concrete step. I've been coming down here for 20 years. Chuck's grip tightened on the pouch. Lucy should have been here with them, her porcelain crown catching the light, her gentle voice mediating between them. Instead, she was fragments, beautiful, irreplaceable fragments that Chuck had gathered from the arena floor while Depsey held off Felicia's dying thrashers. The basement smelled of ink and old paper, with an underlying chemical tang that made Chuck's perpetual smile twitch slightly. When Depsey reached the bottom and flicked on a bare bulb hanging from the ceiling, Chuck stopped in shocked silence. The walls were covered in words. Admitted, scrawled in every size and style, overlapping and layering across every surface. Some written in careful block letters, others carved into the concrete with desperate fingernails. Some in fresh ink, others faded with age. The phrase repeated hundreds, maybe thousands of times, creating a manic wallpaper of guilt that stretched from floor to ceiling. Jesus, Depsey, Chuck whispered, his bowler hat tilting as he craned his neck to take in the scope of it. What is this all? You know what? Don't tell me. But Chuck's words died in his throat as his gaze fell on the far wall. Photographs. Dozens of them, arranged in neat rows like a twisted gallery. Cartoon faces smiling back at them, some familiar, some forgotten, all dead. Chuck approached the photographs slowly, still clutching Lucy's remains. Mr. Muffins, he breathed, pointing at a black and white studio portrait of the beaver in his work overalls. Below the photo, a small placard read, Letter number 1, Mountain Hiking Incident. Payment received. Chuck's yellow surface had gone pale, if such a thing were possible for a cartoon chatterbox. His eyes moved mechanically from photo to photo, reading placard after placard. Oculus, letter number 43, consultation assignment, payment received. Jemima Buttercup, letter number 15, garden party solution, payment received. Professor Willingham, letter number 28, academic retirement, payment received. 43, Chuck said, his voice barely audible. 43 murders, and Lucy makes 44, doesn't she? Even if you didn't push her yourself. This is where you planned them, Chuck continued, his usual cheer completely absent. This is your murder shrine. Depsey stood in the center of the room, surrounded by the evidence of his systematic betrayal. His ears hung low, and for the first time since they'd found him in the arena, he looked genuinely small. This is where the ink worked best, he said quietly. Down here with all the guilt written on the walls, it made the shame go away more efficiently. Chuck spotted his projector sitting on a workbench in the corner, its brass fittings gleaming under the harsh light. But his relief at finding the equipment was immediately crushed when he saw what surrounded it. Personal effects from the victims. Mr. Muffins's red bow tie. Oculus's spare monocle. A pressed flower that must have belonged to Jemima Buttercup. And there, among the murder memorabilia, sat Lucy's wind-up robot. You kept her robot, Depsey said, his voice cracking. Her robot. I kept it because it helped her, Chuck said weakly. She was struggling with self-doubt, and the robot gave her something to focus on. I thought if I kept it safe. Chuck set down the velvet pouch containing Lucy's fragments. and picked up her robot, its brass surface cold and still. She died because of your choices, Depsey. Every murder you committed fed the system that killed her. Chuck moved toward his projector, but stopped when he realized he'd have to push aside Mr. Muffin's bow tie to reach it. Every time you came down here, you saw their faces. You looked at their pictures and you, felt proud? No, Depsey said quickly. I felt nothing. That was the point. The ink made me feel nothing so I could function. So I could keep performing, so you could keep killing, Chuck finished. And now Lucy's dead, because the system you fed grew strong enough to create monsters like Felicia. The silence stretched between them, heavy with 20 years of accumulated horror and fresh grief. Chuck finally reached past Mr. Muffin's bow tie and lifted his projector, its familiar weight somehow feeling different now that he knew where it had been stored. We need this equipment, he said, his voice carefully controlled. Professor Gosling's creator theory. It might be our only chance to stop broadcasting, to save flesh and blood. He looked directly at Depsey. But I want to know about every single one of them. Every murder. Every betrayal. Lucy died thinking you could be redeemed. Prove her right. Depsey's yellow gloves shook as he pulled a leather suitcase from beneath the workbench. Inside, dozens of glass vials filled with purple-black ink clinked softly against each other. Mr. Muffin's was first, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. 20 years ago. He was helping me with an engineering project for the show. We were trying to improve the lighting system. He trusted me completely. Chuck began connecting wires to his projector while Depsey talked, his mechanical movements growing more agitated with each detail. Lucy's robot sat nearby, silent and still, a reminder of who they'd lost. The letter just said, permanent solution to beaver problem. I thought it meant, I don't know, maybe getting him reassigned to a different show. But when Mr. Mystery met me at the Rift, he made it clear what permanent meant. Depsey's voice cracked. Muffins was so excited about our hiking trip, he'd packed sandwiches. And you pushed him, Chuck said, not a question. And I pushed him. And I took the first dose of blood money that night. And the guilt disappeared. Just gone, like it had never happened. Depsey looked at the velvet pouch containing Lucy's remains. I never thought it would lead to friends dying to save me. Chuck found Professor Gosling's research notes among the murder memorabilia, the pages stained with drops of blood money ink. Bidirectional signal flow in creative transmissions, he read aloud. Professor Gosling? As Chuck worked, adjusting frequencies and calibrating the signal amplifiers according to Gosling's theoretical framework, he continued his interrogation. Tell me about Oculus. You looked him in the eye every day for months, knowing you were going to kill him. How? Depsey measured out doses of blood money ink, the liquid seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. Oculus was different after Dr. Dinglegreen enhanced him. He'd have these moments where his original personality would break through, begging for help. The letter said he was experiencing integration problems and needed consultation. You murdered someone who was asking you for help, Chuck said, his voice heavy with grief for all the lost friends. Just like Lucy was trying to help you when she died. I told myself I was putting him out of his misery, Depsey said. The ink made that feel merciful. Chuck had connected the projector to Lucy's robot and was now incorporating the blood money ink into the signal amplification system. The technical work was precise, requiring all his engineering knowledge. But every connection felt contaminated by the murders that had made it possible, and by the fresh loss of Lucy. Here's what I don't understand, Chuck said, not looking up from his work. Every single one of these victims trusted you. Mr. Muffins packed sandwiches for your hiking trip. Oculus came to you for help. Professor Gosling probably thought of you as a promising student. Lucy died protecting you. Yes, Depsey said quietly. And now you want me to trust you, to help you contact the Creator, to believe this isn't just another elimination assignment. Chuck's hands stilled on the equipment. How do I know I'm not just the next photo on your wall? The question hung in the air like a physical presence. Chuck moved closer to the equipment, his protective instincts heightened by Lucy's absence. Because, Depsey said, his voice gaining strength, I'm not taking the blood money anymore. Look at me. Really look. I'm shaking. I'm sick. The withdrawal is killing me, but I haven't taken a dose since the arena. Without the ink, the guilt is... He gestured helplessly at the walls covered in admitted. It's everything, all at once. 20 years of suppressed shame hitting me like a freight train. Chuck looked up from his work, really studying Depsey's appearance for the first time since they'd escaped the broadcasting arena. The rabbit's cartoon features were somehow more defined, more real, as if the absence of blood money was allowing his true personality to surface. His hands shook constantly, and there were dark circles under his eyes that shouldn't have been possible for a cartoon character. The letters always came with enough ink for a month, Depsey continued, but I've been stretching the last batch since before the arena. Smaller doses, longer intervals, trying to break the addiction. He laughed bitterly. 43 murders, and I was proud of myself for cutting back on the payment. Chuck examined the technical setup he'd created. The projector was connected to Lucy's robot through a complex array of wires, with several vials of blood money ink positioned to amplify the signal. According to Professor Gosling's research, the combination should be able to transmit across dimensional boundaries, reaching the Creator who had originally drawn them into existence. Even if I believe you about the withdrawal, he said carefully, how do I know this isn't just a more elaborate elimination plan? Maybe the real assignment was to get us to contact the Creator. Maybe Mr. Mystery wants access to our original artist. The possibility hit both of them simultaneously. Chuck's hands froze on the projector controls. Depsey's eyes widened in horror. I never thought of that, Depsey stammered. The letters always came with specific targets, specific methods. But what if the real plan was longer term? What if every murder was just building up to this moment? Chuck finished. What if broadcasting wants access to the Creator dimension, and you're the perfect vector because you knew us, we trusted you, and you have the technical knowledge to make it work? The two friends stared at each other across the basement full of murder evidence. The Creator contact equipment sat ready, potentially their salvation or their ultimate betrayal. There's only one way to find out, Chuck said finally. We make the contact, but I control the message. We don't give him access to anything. We just ask for help stopping broadcasting. If this is a trap, if you're still working for Mr. Mystery, it'll become obvious fast. Depsey nodded slowly. And if it's real, if I'm really trying to help, then maybe we can actually save those souls. Maybe Lucy's death won't be for nothing. What happens if I'm wrong? Chuck asked. What if the withdrawal has messed with your thinking, and we're putting the Creator in danger without realizing it? Then we'll both be guilty, Depsey said simply. But we'll be guilty together, as friends. That's different from 20 years of isolated betrayal. Chuck made final adjustments to the signal frequency, his engineering expertise guided by Professor Gosling's theoretical framework. The bidirectional signal flow should allow limited communication, he said. We can reach across dimensions, but we're not opening a portal or giving them access to our world. It's like a cosmic telephone call. Depsey measured out a precise amount of blood money ink, his hands still shaking from withdrawal. This should amplify the signal enough to penetrate dimensional barriers. According to Gosling's research, emotional resonance is the key. Authentic feeling can bridge impossible distances. Authentic feeling, Chuck repeated. Something you weren't capable of for 20 years. Something I'm drowning in now, Depsey replied. Guilt, shame, horror at what I've done, grief for Lucy. If that's not authentic emotion, I don't know what is. Chuck positioned his bowler hat more securely and placed his hands on the projector controls. One more time, Depsey. Look around this room. Look at every face on that wall. Every photo represents someone who trusted you, someone who thought you were their friend. Lucy trusted you. Are you our friend or are you our killer? Depsey's gaze moved slowly across the photographs. 43 cartoon characters who had died because they believed in him. Mr. Muffins with his work overalls and trusting smile. Oculus with his 6 eyes and desperate need for help. Professor Gosling with his academic notes and dangerous questions. Jemima Buttercup with her garden flowers and party invitations. Then his eyes fell on the velvet pouch containing Lucy's shattered remains. I'm their killer, he said quietly. I'll always be their killer. But maybe I can also be the one who stops this system from creating more killers. Maybe Lucy died believing I could be both. Chuck nodded, his grip steady on the projector controls, wiping a tear away. Chuck began the startup sequence, the projector humming to life with subtle mechanical sounds. Lucy's robot remained still and silent. There would be no wind-up commentary this time, no gentle guidance. The blood money ink began to glow with an unnatural purple light, responding to the emotional resonance building in the room. Create a signal attempting to lock, Chuck announced, reading the jury-rigged displays. Dimensional barriers they're responding. Something's there. The air in the basement began to shimmer slightly, like heat waves rising from summer pavement. The words "admitted" covering the walls seemed to pulse with the signal rhythm. 20 years of guilt and confession amplifying their transmission. I can feel it, Depsey said, his voice filled with wonder. Something's listening. Someone's listening. Contact established, Chuck said, his excitement barely contained. We're reaching across dimensions. We're actually talking to... The signal suddenly strengthened, and for one impossible moment both friends could see through the dimensional barrier. A cluttered artist's workspace, drawing tablets and animation papers scattered across the desk. Coffee-stained character development sketches. And hunched over it all, a human figure working by lamplight, completely unaware that his cartoon creations were reaching across impossible distances to ask for help. That's him, Chuck whispered. That's the one who drew us into existence. That's our creator, Chuck confirmed, reading energy signatures from his equipment. Professor Gosling's theory was right. There really is an original artist, someone in another dimension who drew us into being. The creator's hand moved to his drawing tablet, as if compelled by some artistic instinct. He began to draw, his pencil moving with sudden urgency. He's drawing, Chuck said, his voice filled with wonder and sadness. Right now, in real time, he's creating while we're trying to contact him. But what is he drawing? They watched through the dimensional shimmer as the artist's hand moved across the tablet. At first, the lines seemed random, instinctive. Then shapes began to emerge. Cartoon forms, familiar silhouettes. He's drawing us, Chuck breathed, his voice barely audible. Look, that's my bowler hat. And... His voice caught. And he's drawing 3 characters. He doesn't know Lucy is gone. The dimensional barrier between creator and creation had never felt thinner. In his workspace, the artist continued drawing, his intuition somehow guiding him to capture 3 cartoon characters standing together in a dark room, their faces showing hope and fear and desperate determination. But only 2 of those characters were still alive to see their creator's hand moving across the tablet. "Signal stable," Chuck reported, his voice heavy with grief and hope. "We're connected. Now we just have to figure out how to tell him that his innocent cartoon creations have been corrupted into a system for destroying innocent souls, that one of us died fighting the corruption, and that we need his help to stop it." Depsey looked one more time at the 43 photographs on the wall. 43 friends who had trusted him. 43 people he had betrayed for drops of purple ink and the temporary absence of guilt. Then he looked at the velvet pouch containing Lucy's remains. "Admit it," he whispered to himself, but this time the words felt different. Not a torment, but a beginning. An admission that could lead to redemption, if redemption was even possible for someone who had done what he'd done. An admission that Lucy had died believing in. The creator continued drawing, his pencil moving across the tablet with increasing urgency, as if some cosmic inspiration was guiding his hand toward a truth that could save more than just cartoon characters. A truth that could save the human minds whose innocence was being systematically destroyed by entities that fed on corrupted entertainment. The contact was established. The hardest part was just beginning. And Lucy somehow would have to be part of the solution, even in death.